Welcome everyone to Sterling Real Estate Partners. We are a local firm in Asheville, North Carolina, and today we're making an effort to give you some information on how to get your home ready to show in these challenging times. So this is our great team. Will you introduce yourself very briefly and say who you are? And if you don't mind, we'll also probably mute while we're not talking, but go ahead. Can Brian, you go ahead and introduce yourself first?
Hi, I'm Brian Deacon. I'm one of the brokers at Sterling Real Estate Partners.
Fantastic. Charlotte?
Hi, I'm Charlotte Van, also a broker at Sterling.
Jane?
Hi, Jane Ward, a broker at Sterling.
Susan?
Hi, Susan Young, also a broker at Sterling.
Jeff?
Jeff Jelinek, broker here at Sterling.
Jonathan?
Jonathan Jackson, you're obviously with Sterling.
Yay, and a fancy conference room.
Yeah.
Ann Sharpstein.
Yes, Ann Sharpstein. I'm a broker with Sterling, but I focus on Transylvania County heavily, and in particular, Brevard area and Lake Toxaway.
Fantastic. And Mike?
Hi, my name is Mike Henderson. I'm a broker with Sterling Real Estate Partners.
Fantastic. Thanks, everybody. We are talking today a little bit about how to get your home ready to show in these challenging times. And a lot of questions are we doing real estate? So as a firm, we all work independently together, which is an interesting aspect. We're all our own businesses, but we work together under the umbrella of Sterling Real Estate Partners, and we kind of craft our best business practices by saying that at this time it's a real challenge to show and sell homes, although we are out there to help clients. But we thought today we'd give you some information on how to sell your home or get your home ready to sell if you're about ready to list. So very briefly, will each of you, and I'll start with Jane, touch on what you're telling clients or what your emphasis is on this time if they're ready to sell, and it's spring because spring is a great time to sell, what your best advice to them is right now. So I'll start with Jane.
All right, the best advice is be proud of your home and display it as though you are. So what that means is when you are asking someone to come and take a look at your home, then make sure that front door is clean and make sure your windows are clean so you don't have to spend any money on fixing anything. Make sure your home is clean, Q-tip clean, as I like to call it, and you put your personal items away. Don't have your refrigerator stacked with magnets. Make sure that home is one that you are now saying to the world, buy it from me, and here's what it is.
Nice. Jonathan, what are you telling clients at this point in time if they're ready to sell and it's springtime?
You're going to hear a lot of very similar information and a lot of instructions that overlap. But when we're getting ready for the house, I'm right with Jane there, where it needs to be as clean as possible, decluttered, to make that first good impression. And if you're ready to list, then we're ready to list it.
Absolutely. Susan?
I've had several of my sellers asking me, should the house even be on the market right now? And with the virus, and yes, if you need to sell, if you desire to sell, the people that are looking at houses right now are serious about buying. You're not going to go out and tire kick right now in this atmosphere. They're going to be serious. So you may not get as many showings on your house, but the showings that you get are going to be better qualified and more apt to be real buyers for your house. They're going to be more meaningful showings. So if this is when you plan to sell, don't hesitate. The buyers are still out there.
Fantastic. And Charlotte, you had personal experience showing a couple of properties yesterday. What are you telling your clients?
Well, you know, we're trying to pre-qualify the houses very well before we even decide to go out and look at them. And then once we get there, I'm bringing with me, and this was a great idea that I got from Susan, but a Ziploc baggie with a washcloth or two in it soaked in alcohol so that we can make sure we wipe down doorknobs or any other surfaces that we touch. Also, it's a great idea to wear gloves or a mask if you can. And then, of course, we're checking in with the sellers and the sellers' agents to make sure that the sellers are comfortable with people entering their homes at this time.
Very good. So it's very important to be sensitive to everybody at this time, and not everybody feels as comfortable. So we're going to talk a little bit more about in detail once we go through this preliminary on what things you can do to help, feature your home, get it ready to show, but also perhaps be able to sell it during these challenging times. So Jeff, what are you telling your clients? You just put a house on the market yesterday.
That was interesting. And a lot of it is essentially, as Jonathan said, make sure your house is ready to show. Make sure that also somebody can come in just from an independent third party and just view it as it is. So a lot of it is going to be declutter, pull out some of your personal items, clean it up, and pretend that it's somebody else coming in and it's not your house. So try to view it from a clean slate.
Very good. Good advice. Anne, what are you telling your clients? You're muted, Anne. Unmute.
I'm actually telling people to not be paralyzed by the fear of the COVID. I mean, that's really the message that I'm getting at. We're moving forward, and I've had more of a challenge trying to convince people to overcome the fear and to, that people are actually out there buying. Mm-hmm. So that's the message I've been communicating.
Good deal. And we'll talk a little bit more about that. Mike, what about you?
Well, I'm just telling people to just keep looking. If they're making their home available, be prepared for lots of to allow us to do the virtual marketing and everything to make sure we can have tours available to people before they come in. It goes along with the pre-qualification of buyers coming into the home. Just taking care of everything to minimize the traffic so that they are the best qualified people to come in, and no time takers.
And that's a solid point. And as a team here at Sterling Real Estate Partners, we've asked all of you, and you've all been wonderful about doing this, making sure that your potential buyers on the seller side, from your seller's perspective, that you're making sure the buyer's agent has pre-qualified these people and that their finances are in order so that we aren't wasting time. In a popular market, it's hard to feel that. And when things are busy, we want everybody to see the house, but at the same time, it doesn't always mean they're qualified. So I'm glad to see that you all are working on that side of it and representing your sellers in a way, and also your buyers, because it's helping your buyers as well. So Brian, what about you? What are you telling your clients right now?
So I always say, look at curb appeal first, right? So I start at the exterior of the home and make sure that, from a different perspective, right? You live in the house, get a neighbor, get a friend to go with you and take an objective look at what your property looks like from the exterior and walk all the way through it. Make a list of every little thing that needs to be taken care of, because buyers are savvy today. They see things, and you want to circumvent issues at the inspection time. So do everything that you can on the forefront of listing, and that way the whole process will be seamless.
That's awesome advice. And what a funny opportunity to get to know your neighbor better, to bring them to your house as an objective. You'll probably want to make sure that you promise you won't be mad at them afterwards, right? It gets very personal. I want to start with Jane, because decluttering is one of those things that, all of us have been through personally, but also as a selling agent, you probably see that. What are the top 3 things that people should declutter, Jane?
That refrigerator. I don't know what people just love to have magnets on the refrigerator. Remove loaves of bread that may be laying around on your kitchen counter, and hang up your towels. Don't leave them, drying on the floor. And people just are, are not that careful about day-to-day living when they want someone to come into their home and think about what they're buying. Can you imagine going to buy a car and that car is loaded up with junk in it? Well, no, you don't want to buy that car. It's the same thing is true with your home. Have it presented in such a way that you are proud of it, and clean up your stuff.
Yeah. Well, now I did get a question from some homeowners, and I'm going to ask Jonathan to elaborate on this. I have pictures of my family, one of the homeowners asked, and said, it makes me feel like it's a family home, and people who will come in and see it will know that a happy family lived here. Jonathan, from a photography standpoint, and we'll talk a little bit more about that because you have expertise in photography, different than that is family photos. What do you tell people with their family photos and maybe good scenes? You know, they went on a great vacation and they just want to showcase that the home was loved by a family. What would you say?
You know, there are always two sides to the argument. I typically try to have as much removed as possible because I want people to concentrate on themselves living in that house and not asking about, well, is that Jamaica or is that Aruba, you know, from your family vacation photos. Now, I don't want it to be completely bare, you know, so don't try to take all of your personality out, but again, let the buyers imagine themselves living there.
And so let's start with you with photos. You take a lot of your own photos. You've done photography for years. Would you give us a quick highlight on what is important about from a selling point, the photos? What do you tell your clients, and what should other agents and or other homeowners know about professional photos for their home for selling?
I read a great article that I just shared with a couple clients while we were getting their house ready. Basically, the first thing we already talked about was cleaning. Start from the outside and work your way in. You don't want any photographers working around your mess or shooting to distract people from what you have inside. You want them to take the best pictures at the best time. The next thing you want to do really is preparing. I know somebody's going to be discussing decluttering, and just like we were talking about removing some of the personal items, but you also want to go ahead and flip on all the lights. You want to go ahead and open up all the windows, let there be as much light coming into the house as possible before the photographer ever gets there. And then after that, it was really funny in the article. It said, to put it bluntly, leave. You don't want the photographer to have to work around you. You don't want them to be distracted. And if we're talking about photos, it's a little easier. But once you start doing walkthrough tours or Matterport virtual, 3D tours, we're hiding from the camera. So having you and your family in along with the dogs, it just creates a process where it's 3 or 4 times harder than it should be. So it's clean, prepare, and then leave.
Great. That's great advice. And then one of the questions that we got from homeowners is there something magic about the twilight hour? And should people have those twilight photos, or what would you qualify as a necessary twilight photo?
Well, you want the first image to be the best and most inviting image that you can prepare. That is, you're competing online against every other listing, so you have to have something inviting. I try to shoot a lot during twilight because it's going to be the guaranteed even lighting where you can really show off the house. It doesn't have to be a dramatic sunset, but it has to be a really inviting photo of your home.
Fantastic. Now, one of the other questions that we get from homeowners a lot when they're getting ready to sell is who pays for the photos?
The agent pays for the photos.
Okay, and that's included in the listing.
Sure, absolutely.
Fantastic. And because you get to do it, do you pay yourself well?
I'm keeping with the broke photographer aspect, but
it's actually probably nice.
Yeah, it's part of the fun for me.
That's awesome. Well, and you take great photos, and people can follow you on Facebook if they'd like to see some of your comparing photos and give their opinions. So it's good stuff. Charlotte, I want to move on to you because we've talked a lot about decluttering, about cleaning. We've got a really talented firm. A lot of people do other things with real estate that are in the real estate area, and you've owned a cleaning business for a lot of years. So where do you think people are the dirtiest, and where should they focus?
Oh gosh. With our business and with our clients, when we come into a home for the first time, we usually recommend a deep cleaning. And with the deep cleaning, we're hitting surfaces and things that people don't normally think about when they're cleaning their home, like ceiling fans, baseboards, windowsills, blinds. Those are the things that buyers are going to see when they first walk into that house and notice all the dust that's built up over the last year, 2 years, 3 years since the last time you've deep cleaned your home. And of course, bathrooms and kitchens, those are places that should be kept sanitary anyways, but we want to make sure that they are, wiped down surfaces, even underneath like toasters and microwaves, inside the oven, in case the buyer decides to look in there and see what kind of condition it's in. Those are the types of things that, I would have my cleaning crew focus on. And there's so many cleaners out there right now that are looking for work. So if you don't like to clean, you can find somebody to come and deep clean your house for $200. And it's so worth it to just make sure that everything is polished and looking great.
So let me ask you, as a listing agent, kitchen is that, do you think when people walk in and see a clean kitchen, it helps sell it better? Or do you feel like it's dusting? You know, I'm a homeowner and I'm busy and I'm going to work and I've got to show this property today. If I make my bed, and what do I do next? I make my bed, make sure the beds are made and everything's kind of okay, but what's the next thing? Clean off countertops, or do I concentrate more on bathrooms? What do you think?
Yeah, we've talked a lot about decluttering, and I think that goes for all the rooms in your house. Like Jane said, get rid of the bread that's on top of the countertops. Put it in a bread box, put it in your, refrigerator. Put away all the little gadgets that you don't use every day. Keep things simple, have your microwave out, your toaster, whatever. Put away the blender and all those little things that you're not using all the time, because it'll just make the space look more fresh. But I actually read an article put out by the NAR, the National Association of Realtors, and listing agents and buyer's agents were surveyed, and they all said that the living room is the most important room for staging, followed by the master bedroom and then the kitchen. So, in terms of the living room, in terms of staging, I would recommend just minimizing the furniture. It seems like most sellers have way too much furniture. So, now we're in this time where we can really focus on decluttering, and maybe it's time to get that storage unit or put some furniture away in your shed out back. Put away the photos, like Jonathan said. Just get rid of things that are gonna make it a little too personal, so that your buyers can come in and visualize themselves in that space. As far as the master bedroom, just making sure you have like fluffy pillows, the beds have nice cushy linens, and then the kitchen, we already talked about that. So I would go in that order.
So living rooms are important for staging, and I appreciate you looping that in. I think a lot of times one of the things people want to know is, how much is my home worth and how much can I sell it for? And Susan, I know you do a lot of research on CMAs. We all do. And I know that's one of your fortes, because you also do unique properties. You work with a lot of older homes. And then obviously you live way, way out in a great area, and it's hard to find comps. So how do you price a home and get it ready to sell?
Well, with unique properties, it is certainly a little bit more challenging. If the seller is willing to get an appraisal, that is always helpful. Even if that appraisal was a couple of years old, I've been in the market long enough that I know how to look at those old appraisals and kind of compares to what we were at today compared to where we were a couple of years ago. Pricing homes right now with everyone being on a homestay directive, it's a lot of telephone interviews with potential sellers, asking them a lot of questions. If they can do video walkthroughs with me on the house, it's helpful so I can get an idea of it. And then my next step always, and always has been, to then hit the computer, see if it's been on the multiple listing service before, so that I can pull up old photographs compared to where they've told me they've made improvements, look at the tax records, Google any information that I can on the house, on the neighborhood, find comps for it based on all that. But then when I have the actual listing appointment, I talk to the person face to face and see the house in person, then I can compare what I have found with what the reality is and help them price the house accordingly. And I always make an effort to come up with that price with the seller.
Okay,
A lot of sellers,
go ahead.
Sellers are a lot more savvy nowadays. They've been doing their own research.
Yeah.
So they already have a value in mind. And a lot of times we agree on that value, or maybe we're close to it. So.
And Jeff, I know you have some insight on that. What are your thoughts as well?
Pretty much the same, but one of my first steps now, I think, with the stay-at-home directives is to go and see as much as I can on the outside of the house. Go into the crawl spaces, those kind of things, and check out the outside. And, Jonathan mentioned that too in the photography part of it. There was, in doing some of the CMAs and looking at things, a lot of times I'll find that sellers already have a number in mind because they've done a lot of research. They know their neighborhood pretty well. And with that said, we have to closely, if we agree on that price, we have to closely monitor things, within the MLS and what's going on, and then have a strategy pretty much set up what to do with pricing in 7 days, 10 days. something like that. So
So are you saying that the market could shift enough that you could lose buyers if you're not priced competitively, and that you've talked to your sellers about what that plan might be?
exactly. And the plan doesn't have to be real extensive. It just has to be there and be ready mentally and,
Yeah.
have a discussion point in a week.
And I want to bring Brian in on this as our internet guru, who you've been working in the tech industry for your career and super savvy. I get this call a lot. Zillow says my house is worth blah. And so can you give us a little information on where those numbers come from and whether that's a reliable number to go with?
Well, for starters, I've never felt like the Zestimate that's posted on Zillow is advantageous for anybody because our market shift, houses are located, well, as my father, who's been in real estate for a number of years, has always said location, location, location. And starting from there, the important thing is to look at what's happening in the market around you. So while Zillow is looking at the macro market, as agents, we look at the micro market, which is that specific neighborhood. It could be that zip code, but we're focused on how that house is competing with other homes of like nature on the market. So for me, when I list a house, I do exactly what a lot of other agents do is I come up with my pricing strategy over a period of weeks. But every week I look at and redo the CMA based on the activity around me and talk to my folks and let them in on all the information so that we can make educated and factual changes, to the listing strategy.
Fantastic. Those are good things to know right before you start selling. You don't necessarily want to rely on that. That's what's important about having a great agent, someone who's done the research and homework on pricing, because pricing is ultimately the most important factor, barring all other ones. But there is this thing where people come into condition. And Mike, I want to ask you about, because you just bought a home and you're making some structural changes, adding some rooms. But if somebody's getting ready to sell, what do you tell them if they have some unfinished projects or say that they need to reconfigure their landscape? Where do you think they should spend their money? And then I'll ask you a follow-up question to that as to what if they don't have any money to follow up, to put into the projects. But first, let's talk about what projects do you think they should do first?
Well, the thing that I really think is most important and probably the lowest budget wise is the list of things that you would that you kind of have going on around the house. The door that sticks, the electrical light that's kind of flickering that you may have lived with and you haven't fixed yourself, but as soon as a homeowner or a prospective homeowner comes through the house and they go and grab the door and they can't get it open, that's a kind of a little strike against the house. It's a little thing, but it's little things like that. I don't think you need to go install a wet bar that you've been desiring to have in your home for a while or something else like that. But it's the little things like that. The weather stripping around the door where you can see light when you walk up to an exterior door. Just little things like that where you can go hire a handyman for a couple $100 and increase the curb appeal just on a personal level, more than just the initial first impression, but once they enter the home, if they can't get through the front door, it's kind of a bad first impression right there. When
I agree. So smaller things help make a bigger picture better.
Absolutely, because when they're touring the home, they'll run into those things as they move through the home.
So let's say a homeowner's prioritizing a fix before they put their house on the market and they've known they needed a new roof, but they actually could repave the driveway. What do you think of those two projects would be the better?
Oh, that's the driveway definitely helps with the curb appeal. So if the roof is in decent shape, that's something that could go later after and especially if you're upfront about it with the roof. The curb appeal might, in this period of time, be a better selling point, but roof generally gets you a decent return when you have the new roof that you're already providing 30 years of life.
Perfect. Perfect. So Anne, you have been in marketing for years, and that's one of your strengths. You have a blog out in Brevard where people follow you, and marketing is a tricky thing with real estate. What do you highlight with your sellers when you talk about marketing their home for sale?
Well, right now, my answer to the question of, how everyone's asking, business owners and homeowners are asking, how do we market our business or my home differently now during the COVID-19 crisis? And my answer is really the same for both of them. Number one, over communicate. Now is the time to over communicate. And by that, I mean agents. Of course, we at Sterling are better than any other firm at marketing, and we get our message out about your new listings in every avenue and every forum available. I mean, email, social marketing, Facebook, Instagram, blogs, videos, and then the old-fashioned picking up the phone. And so I would suggest to people who are putting their homes on the market, they can do the same. Communicate with their little network, let people know that your home is going on the market. Now is the time to over communicate and not be shy. The second thing is I like to think of that first 14-day period as a sprint. You're going to do everything that you can when you get people to your house. Make sure that it's a great experience. Your agent will be making sure it's a great experience for the buyer, for everyone actually, but making it easy for the buyer's agents to have all the documents they need and everything. And what you can do is make sure it's a great experience for people like we've been talking about. Make sure the house smells great. Make sure it's tidied up. Make sure you're not there. And so I think if you think of those first 14 days when your home is on the market as a sprint, and it's like that high intensity interval training. You're just going to book it and work hard, for 2 weeks. And if you have your home priced right and you're doing your marketing, your agent's marketing, we're better than anyone about that, your house will sell. So talking about marketing, those are sort of the two points that we seem to focus on.
Fantastic. And this is all great information. Before we leave today, I want everybody to just kind of highlight what you are working on with your sellers, just something maybe informationally that's important to you to let people know in this time, getting ready to show or sell your home. What would you tell them, Jane? What's your best advice today?
Let's see. The best advice today with them getting ready is to then, as we discussed today, be ready. As Mike said, if somebody has trouble opening a door, they're going to find every little thing in that house that's going to bother them after that first instance. Trying to get in the house, and then that door is going to be a little difficult. So they will just find every little thing. So always, it's those little things that make the difference. That is really, really true when it comes to making a home available to the world without spending a lot of money, because a lot of people have to be careful about that now, especially.
Sure. Jeff?
Just those little things that make a difference, and care about them. Listen to them, and it's for buyers and sellers. It's a real critical time.
Perfect. Thanks for that advice, Jeff.
Similar things, and it's essentially try to view your house, as if you were a buyer of your house, and go through it with just an open mind, and then start making a list of some of the small things you might want to do to it, whether it's cleaning up or a little bit of small repairs.
Fantastic. Jonathan?
What I'm talking about with my sellers is we're going and doing walkthrough videos for every property we have listed. I want prospective buyers to have a really good sense of the home before they ever walk into it. That way it's more of a confirmation as they walk in, yes, we want to move forward, rather than something brand new to them. So the marketing really has to be put together before listing, and especially right now where people aren't as willing to walk into the house.
Fantastic. Brian?
I always say focus on repairs first. Make a list of all repairs that you've done to the house just to have on hand for buyers, because there's a lot of things they can't see. Paint, touch up, declutter, look at it with fresh eyes. Like I said earlier, if you're using your neighbor to help you, take their feedback, look at it, and have a really good pricing strategy with your agent. So think of those things early on versus after the fact, after it's been listed.
Great. And we follow up with all the great stuff you said again with what you are telling sellers.
I think the key is really having, just like what Brian said, having a strategy for addressing repairs and getting your house ready for people to come through it, having a pricing strategy, all these things. It's just having a plan. And that's why it's so important to have a really good agent who can guide you. I think that's really essentially it, just having a plan for these important areas and then executing the plan well, and you'll be successful through this trying time.
Yes. Charlotte?
I think the most important thing right now is to not procrastinate. Even if you're on the edge about selling your house, now is a great time while we're all at home to be working on those projects like we talked about, the little fixes that you can take care of right now. But also take a look at where you have junk stored up in your home and, sell it, store it, whatever you need to do to free up those spaces and create a more inviting atmosphere. That stairwell nook that you have where all the junk is piled up, you could remove all that junk, put it away in storage, sell it, do whatever you need to do with it, and create a nice little reading nook. It's going to make your space more comfortable in the long run, even if you do decide to stay in your house for yourself while you're there and you have this time on your hands. But more importantly, if you find the need to sell in a pinch, you're going to be ready.
Perfect. Mike?
Right now, basically, to go with Jonathan, it's basically to get the video tours ready and everything like that, so that the marketing gives the potential buyer the best sense of the home before they even show up. But be ready to sell. I mean, because the buyers are still looking right now, and as people kind of open up their doors and come back out, there's probably going to be a little bit of a frenzy, another little with the spring competition and everything on all the homes.
Absolutely. Susan?
The one thing I always stress with my sellers, once the house goes on the market, is, we know this is your house, you love it, maybe you raised your family in it, maybe you designed and built it yourself. But once it goes on the market, it's a product. And the people coming to see the house, they don't have the personal investment. So if they don't like the custom staircase that you built, don't take it personally. It may not work for them. It doesn't mean they don't like the house. It can be really hard having strangers coming through your house and criticize it. So that's going to happen. Take the feedback for what it's worth. Don't take it personally. Know that you still have a beautiful house. Otherwise, they wouldn't have come to see it. And you have to be a little bit detached, because otherwise, when you get to the point where you do have an offer and you're negotiating, it's I don't know, I'm at a loss for words. When you get to the point where you're negotiating, you have to just remember that it's a business transaction at that point. So
And I appreciate that. And I think we'll wrap up with this. It's an emotional experience. I think people think it's just a buying and selling business transaction, but these really are personal experiences where you've had a home for a long time and you feel very close to it and you've designed it a certain way, and then it becomes personal. And that's what we're a screen for, in helping you to not take things personally, to be able to stay present in the business transaction and also achieve the highest goal, which is getting the best price in the least amount of time so that you can move on and do whatever it is next. I want to thank all of you. You are a fabulous team. I feel fortunate to work with people who have such great experience, both in your backgrounds and in your real estate businesses. And I hope today what we've done is helped other potential buyers and sellers know what we're thinking as real estate agents and professionals in the industry, and just kind of demystifying what's happening. I think a lot of people are concerned, and this is a perfect time to work on those small lists, to work on those things that we need to work on to get our homes ready to sell. And if you have any other questions, we're all available. Specifically, you can reach us on the Sterling Real Estate Facebook page. If you don't have Facebook, we're at allsterlingrealestatepartners.com, all at. And you can reach all of us if you'd like to ask any questions, but we really appreciate your time. And if you're watching this and you've stayed with us the whole time, thank you again. And I hope you have a fabulous day, and hopefully we will see the light at the end of this tunnel very soon.